All right. How's it going? Wanted to talk today quickly about guilt and specifically with when us on the spiritual path or, self help or whatever you want to call it, right? Just people that are trying to better themselves. When you're on this path, trying to better yourself and become aware of how you are and wanting to improve, wanting to evolve, wanting to pay attention to how you've been unconsciously acting and consciously change it. It can be very easy to fall into the trap of feeling guilty whenever you fall out of it. And I want to say that that guilt may actually be worse than, or I believe it's worse than actually the falling out of it. Like it's actually worse than falling out of it. And it's also, it is part of the work itself because, ultimately in the spiritual path, you're releasing judgment, right? You're releasing, that self-judgment, that self criticism, that self-doubt, all these things that kind of come back to the self, right? And in love and unconditional love, there is none of that. So that's a point that can really hit home right there. But I also wanted to talk about it in a more practical sense, just with life in general. And like for me, particularly, it's like when I feel when it comes to video games or YouTube videos or like these things that I like to do in my free time, believe me, I'm the first one to say that we need less screen time. And I'm talking for myself. Like I need less screen time. I need less distraction. I need to focus on the things that I really want to build my future with, my business, my art, all these things, my music, my languages that I'm learning, like all these things. And these are all tend to be more productive things, right? But there is something to be said for we have seasons, right? We have seasons, and like the tides of the ocean, we're constantly moving. And sometimes you need to be a little fun and goofy and set the schedule aside and set the goals aside and be like, you know what, I've done enough for this time period, for this day or this week or this month or whatever. And like, I'm going to kick back and watch a movie, or I'm going to play some video games, or I'm going to watch a video, or I'm going to whatever. And not only to not feel guilty about it, but to know that it's actually good for you, right? But it takes a lot of wisdom and self-knowledge, because no one can tell you what's right for you but you, to really know whenever it's authentic and it's needed and it's actually beneficial for you, and when it's an addictive pattern where you're just distracting yourself from something, right? So it's an endless game, like all this work, but I do think that it is a really worthy task, a really worthy concept to keep in mind. Like, hey, am I doing this because just because I feel like I've earned it, but I actually am still in the mood to like work on this project or whatever. It's very nuanced. And I find myself, there's times where you couldn't get me to play a video game. There's times like a month will go by where it's like I am so obsessed with the music and like I'm so like in the flow, you know what I mean? I just can't, I'm so creative, I'm this and that. But then there's other times where it's like that nagging part of me is like, you should work on this, you should work on that, and I'm just like, I just am not, I'm not even useful. Like I'm not like, it's like strike while the iron's hot. It's like, man, I really just want to do this one thing, and I know once I do this, once I play this video game, once I beat this boss, like I'll be like, okay, like the next day I'll come back and I'll be ready. Like I'll be ready, refreshed to work on that song. And again, and that could be like an out too. That could be lying to yourself. And whenever sometimes you do have to just show up and be disciplined and actually, do the uncomfortable step of getting started, and then you're in the flow and you feel better. So I'm not saying that there's one right way. It's it's not black, it's not white, right? And it's not left or right. It's somewhere in the middle, and it's different for everybody. It's really different for everyone's situation. In my own experience, just release the guilt as much as you can for when you do fall off the wagon, for whenever you do fall from grace, and that's normal. Know that it's normal, and learn to just love yourself and soothe, in those moments. And then also understand that sometimes it's good for you to be a little lazy. Sometimes, what we would call lazy. Like sometimes, like I said, sometimes you just have that fire inside you and you are just on a roll. And then sometimes you just get a little burnt out and you need a little bit of that mindlessness, Then of course, a spiritual teacher might say, well, the good mindlessness would be the meditation. And yes, that too. But I think there's, we do live in an age where, we have all these different things and they can be used for good. Like it's not, don't let just the spiritual teachers or the gurus on YouTube or whatever just tell you that like all this stuff is always bad. Like it's always bad to scroll, through YouTube, or it's always bad to watch TV shows, or it's always bad. It's like to play video games. Like, no, that's not true. We're all different. We're all unique, and we all can see things through our own unique lens. And it's up for you to decide what's right for you. And that's bottom line. It takes intuition, it takes wisdom, and it takes being really honest and vulnerable with yourself. So do that, release the guilt, love yourself, and understand in those moments, would it be beneficial for me to actually do this? I mean, something that I do a lot is I do anything that's like leisurely or like video games or something. That's always the last thing. Like I do all my like productive stuff first, and even that could be seen as like I feel like I'm worthy of it then, which still shows a little bit of that ego, still shows a little bit of that insecurity. That's definitely possible, but I think it's a healthy habit for me knowing like if I can get, in my mind, the good productive things out of the way, if I leave just a little bit of time for some of that other stuff, then it's like I ate my dinner, now I can have my dessert kind of a thing. And I don't eat dessert that often, not just literally but figuratively in this example. So, but again, every season is different, and sometimes 3 days might go by where all I want to do is play video games, and it's very rare that that's all I would do, right? But I'm just saying like where, I would be far less productive or creative in those 3 days. And then there's sometimes where, you just can't get me to stop working on music. You can't get me to stop, studying Arabic or Spanish or whatever it is that I'm working out. Like I work out all the time. So just trust yourself, learn yourself, and that's it. That's all I have to say. I hope it's been helpful, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.